Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. The big world is attracted by the great unknown space behind the tempered glass. The station hangs on the edge of known territory, a lonely beacon of human existence on this distant frontier. He took a deep breath of recycled air with a faint metallic smell that reminded him of the great distance from Earth. Dr. Corvus was welcomed onto the plane, and his reverie was interrupted by a shrill voice. Commander Aaron and Reeves came to meet him. Her posture, stiffness, and piercing gaze make me want to make sure your trip will be safe. Zane turned around and shook his hand firmly, as calm as if he had been in 3 months of frozen sleep. Thanks for Levi's nod. Roughly, your reputation is higher than that of your doctor. We look forward to hearing what your expertise can contribute to our research. She pointed to the main hallway. Let me take you to where you live, and then we'll head to the lab for a briefing as Zane's mind races with the possibilities. Being able to study cosmic phenomena at the edge of known space is a dream come true. He fought for this position, leaving a pleasant academic position and a number of colleagues with skeptical attitudes. Reeves said her tone was neutral, but her eyes explored Zane, and she laughed lightly and made a breakthrough tomorrow. Commanders, that's how science develops, and they arrive at his quarters, a compact but well-appointed space that will serve as his home for the foreseeable future. Reeves asked him to settle down, telling him to report to the main lab alone in an hour, and Zane unpacked his few personal belongings, his fingers lingering over the hollow photo of his parents, who looked proud. A smile is frozen in time. I'll make it count. He whispered and placed it on the small table. An hour later, Zane was standing in front of several holographic displays in the main lab, his eyes darting from one reading to the next. Here she says, the liftoff of the new display is our most puzzling data set, and we have detected unusual quantum fluctuations in this region. She pointed to the star system beyond the edge of the map room, leaned against his forehead, and crumpled the patterns. They were unlike anything I had ever seen before. Doctor. Kapoor pretended to open his eyes. You'd think Alienzon's heart was already beating. These fluctuations showed a level of complexity that was difficult to attribute to natural phenomena that had been quietly observed. Dr. Corvus, do you recommend? We have found signs of extraterrestrial intelligence. Zane gave him a stern look, hinting that it was a possibility. We cannot ignore it. We will continue to investigate. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Zahn worked long hours, barely sleeping, and immersed himself in data analysis. His colleagues were alternately excited and skeptical, but no one could deny the strangeness of these signals. On the 5th day, alarms went off throughout the station during another scan, and Zahn rushed to the main lab where the discovery was made. Here's what happens in the chaos, he shouted in Dr. Kapoor's face. Hal pointed to the main screen, where they had boosted the signal, and looked at the energy signal. Zane's jaw dropped. The readings were off the charts, indicating that a massive amount of unknown energy was flowing into the lab report from the commanders of the unmarked planet. Zane turned to face him, his eyes shining with excitement and determination. Commander, we are going there. Whatever it was more more than anything we'd encountered, and we couldn't pass up the opportunity. Levi's was hesitant to weigh the risks of a potential discovery. In the end, she nodded and collected Dr. Corvus, who left the Earth fall within 6 hours. On the surface, Zahn was tied to the route bus. Along with a small team of researchers and security guards, the staff couldn't take their eyes off the viewing port. As the planet breaks through the atmosphere, its surface appears larger, revealing a swirling mix of deep purples and blues. Strange energy readings caused their instruments to fluctuate wildly. The pilot, Lieutenant Ramos, cursed under his breath as he struggled to maintain control and hold on. She screamed as the shuttle rocked violently. They hit so hard that Zai's teeth vibrated. When the dust settled, the team fell into an eerie silence. Atmospheric readings, steady doctor. Kapoor reports, her voice erratic. The oxygen level matches human physiology. Zai unbuckles and goes to the airlock. Tells us to get dressed and go out. The surface of the planet is alien, and the beautiful crystal structure juts out from the ground and reflects the light of the distant sun, showing a mesmerizing pattern. There is a faint electrical charge in the air that makes the hairs on Zai's arms stand up. Even as his suit flew, he commanded but maintained eye contact. We don't know what we're dealing with here. When Zane found something that made his heart beat from a distance, they barely started to investigate. What can only be described there as a structure? He yelled as he motioned for the team to gather as he cautiously made his way towards the alien building. As they approached, Zane noticed movement. He raised his hand to signal the others not to come out. He whispered softly. A humanoid figure emerges from the humanoid structure, but is clearly not human. Its skin was a deep iridescent blue, and as it came closer, it seemed to glow in the strange light, and Zane could make out more details. Almond-shaped eyes that glittered a little long gracefully, limbs and a face that beautifully persecuted it strangely lifted the security team of their weapons, but Zane nodded them and held the fire. He ordered his voice, barely over a whisper. The alien stopped for a few meters in a curious way and then shocked everyone. It's welcome. It spells out the words, I am Leah, clearly and distinctly in perfect English. We've been waiting for you. Zane stepped forward, his heart pounding. I am Dr. Zane Corvus. We come in peace. How to? How do you know Leah's lips are bent at a smile? We have been studying for you for a while. We need your help. Our help. Zane is confused. What do you mean? Lee's face darkened. My people were dying. The genetic mutations caused by the intense radiation in this room are destroying us. We were the last survivors, and Zahn's scientific curiosity combined with my empathy. Sorry, but how can we help? We discovered that establishing a symbiotic relationship with species whose DNA is unaffected by this radiation could save our species. You agree that Leah's words hit Zane like a physical blow. He stared at her, a million questions running through his mind, but before he could name any of them, when their eyes met, he suddenly felt an inexplicable attraction to this foreigner. In that moment, Zane knew his life would never be the same. There was a hint of anxiety in Dr. Corvus's and Dr. Kapoor's composure. What should we do? Zane took a deep breath. Never taking his eyes off Lee's sparkling eyes, he listened. He was confident that we would learn and then decide how to move forward, just like the rest of the team. Zane took a step closer to Leah with awe and trepidation. The air between them seemed to crackle with unseen energy, a tangible manifestation of the significant first contact between their species. Tell us everything. Zane said it in his voice. Despite the whirlwind of his inner emotions, we understand Leia here. She nods, and her movements are fluid and graceful. She said, pointing to the building she came out of. There was a lot of explaining to do, and like I said, time was short, and Zay was falling behind Leah and his team. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was embarking on the greatest adventure and perhaps the greatest challenge of his life. The fate of an entire species could be in his hands, and his connection to it was inexplicable, as it only added to the gravity of the moment. The future of two worlds hung in the balance, and Zane Corvus stood on the precipice of a discovery that would change human history forever. As Zane followed Leah into the alien structure, his mind raced with questions and possibilities. The interior was a marvel of organic architecture with vibrant luminescent walls that seemed to breathe life into our civilization that once spanned the galaxies. Leah explained, her voice tinged with sadness. Now we are reduced to this. Our last refuge. Zane's scientific curiosity battled with his growing empathy for Leah and her people. Can you tell us more about your physiology? Maybe I can find a solution if I understand it better. Leah nodded and led him into a room full of holographic screens. She began to explain the intricacies of the biology of her species, and Zane found himself drawn not only to the information but also to Leah herself, her blue skin glowing with the beauty behind her movements, and for the next few days, Zane studied Leah with grace and charm. He worked tirelessly, analyzing data and running simulations. The rest of the team helps but keeps a cautious distance from the aliens. Leah began to tell him about the history of her people, their art, and their philosophy, and Zane found himself drawn not only to the information but also to Leah's enthusiasm, and as she told him, the days turned into weeks. Zane and Leah get closer and closer. They spent a long time together, sometimes just talking. Zane found that he opened up his life, his ambition, and his fears one night. She spoke a little, but it was not painful but very happy, which caused a feeling throughout his body. He was breathing, his eyes were excited and confused, and they seemed to make my people brighter. Our body produces biological electric fields. When we encounter compatible people, she didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to understand its meaning. From that moment on, everything changed. Zane and Leah's relationship grows deeper and closer. Their nights are filled with physical and emotional exploration. The sensation Zane was experiencing was unlike anything he had ever experienced, and he knew it even before Leah's touch sent sparks over his skin. Her kisses left him dizzy with pleasure. As they grew closer, Zane couldn't help but be captivated by Leah's ethereal beauty. Her skin, a deep iridescent blue, seemed to shimmer with an inner light, especially under the alien stars. Her almond-shaped eyes glowed softly, filled with intelligence and emotion, drawing him in every time their gazes met. Her movements are fluid and graceful, like water flowing over polished stones. Her manner is imbued with ancient wisdom and strength, and her hair flows in silky waves that frame a face that is both eerily alien and extreme. Her beautiful face and her features seem to have been carved to perfection by a divine artist one night as they stood together in the crystal garden, the air crackling with the hair around them. Using the energy of their connection, Leah focused on Zay's eyes, reflecting the myriad colors of the surrounding crystal structures. Zay whispered in her shaky voice, "I want to share something deeper with you. Something sacred to my people." Zane's heart raced as he nodded, his eyes locked on hers. "I'm ready, Leah. Whatever it is, I want to experience it with you." She reached out and took his hand, leading him to a secluded area in the garden where the crystals formed a natural alcove, their glow creating a soft, intimate light. They sat facing each other, and Leah gently placed her hands on Zane's shoulders. Liaison whispered as her touch sent familiar shivers through his body. His voice is full of hope and respect. It was so beautiful to laugh with a shiny expression, and it seemed to light up the whole garden. "Thank you, Zane. Your presence is also wonderful to me." Slowly, she leaned against his lips and kissed him gently. Among them, it is more intense than ever. When their kiss reinforced Zaja's hand for her waist, she was closely attached to Zane's breathing, and the waist moved to the waist, making the waist closer and closer to her feelings. Leah's hands slid down her chest through the thin fabric of her clothing, the warmth of her skin, and the soft velvety texture. Explore the contours of his muscles with the feathery touch that leaves a tingling sensation. She broke the kiss in her soft pants and met his gaze with now brighter eyes full of lust and love. "Zane," she whispered as we connected like this. "It's not just physics. Our energy will unite." Zane nodded. "Our hearts will be defeated. You're sure you are ready." Although he was full of feelings, I never approved of anyone. With elegant movements, Lias began to dress up and reveal all her foreigners. Her body is a curve masterpiece, and with movement, dancing, and transfer, biological light patterns followed his eyes. He never let her admire every second. Between the soft and glowing moss, she crossed his touch, ordered both, but also gently bent and kissed her. The bioelectric field between them increased, creating a sensation that was both electric and sensual, and Zane felt every nerve in his body fill with pleasure. Leah's every touch ignited his soul. Their bodies and energies moved together in perfect harmony, merging in a dance of love and connection that transcends the physical. Body off, the softness of her thighs, each touch with each caress, was met with a rush of bioelectric energy that intensified their pleasure, binding them closer together. Their breaths mingled, their hearts beat together, and as they reached the apex of their union, Zane felt a deep connection with Leah that went beyond the simple physical. It was as if their very souls had entwined and created a single, harmonious unity as they climaxed. It was like nothing Zane had ever experienced, as a wave of pure ecstatic energy washed over them, leaving them both shaking and breathless in their bodies. Still tangled up, Leah fell against Zane, her head resting on his chest, their hearts beating in unison for a long moment. They lay in the glowing garden, the afterglow of their union wrapping them in a cocoon of warmth and love. Zane stroked Leah's hair, wonder and awe of what they had just shared with Leah filling her mind. He whispered that it was incredible. I had never felt this way before. Leah looked up at him, love and gratitude shining in her eyes. It's unbelievable to me too. Thanks for sharing with me. Zane smiled and pulled her close again. Leah, thank you for showing me this side of your world and sharing yourself with me. I feel changed in the best possible way. One morning, after a particularly intense night together, Leah revealed the whole truth to Zane. Her voice is very serious, and there are more. You need to understand the symbiotic bond. I mentioned it when we first met. Zane immediately sat up. What is it? Leah took a deep breath and became completely alone with us. It might save my entire species, but it would change you forever. You would become something new, neither fully human nor fully like us. The weight of her words hit Zane like a physical blow. He was looking into her mind. To shock you, I have to give up my humanity. Zane suddenly got up and walked around the room. His thoughts were in chaos. On the one hand, he had devoted his life to scientific discoveries and the promotion of knowledge. The possibility of saving an entire species and becoming an entirely new species was unprecedentedly human. Or the identity of seeing his family again fills him with dread, and I need time to think about what he's saying. In the end, of course, his voice nodded in her eyes. Remember Zane time, not with us. For the next few days, Zane fought for his own decision. He began to work with renewed vigor, wanting to find alternative solutions, but every simulation and every test came to the same conclusion. A symbiotic merger is the only viable option. His team noticed a change. One night, Dr. Kapoor told him that worry was written all over her face. Doctor, Cow is doing well. It feels like you are combing Asha's hair with your hands, and it is very different. What would you do if you had the power to save a whole species, but the cost was all that? Dr. Kapoor's eyes became wider when understanding increased. What are you considering exactly? As he spoke, he told her all about the symbiotic relationship, the possibility of saving Lee's people, and the cost to himself. He realized he was trying to convince himself, as was she, that it wasn't just about science anymore. Asha asked quietly when he was done. No. S not that I love her, but is that enough reason to give up everything? I've ever known Asha place a comforting hand on his shoulder. Only you can answer that, Zane, but whatever you decide, you know you have our back, because Zane left the lab that night and his mind was no clearer. He revealed that we were going to the Crystal Garden, where he and Leah had shared so many moments. To his surprise, he found her there, looking up at what I thought was the unknown sky. "I can find you here." Leah said it without turning. Zane moved to stand next to Leah. She turned her eyes on him, sparkling with unshed tears. "You don't have to say anything. Zahn, I know what I'm asking of you is huge. I would understand if you chose not to do that." Zane reached out and cupped her face in his hands. The familiar spark of their touch sent shivers through him. "How can I not do it? Your people will die, and you won't be a whole person anymore," Leah whispered. It was too much to ask. "I don't know who I would be if I did, but I know who I would be if I wasn't the one who had the chance to save an entire species and I couldn't do it. The one who let the woman he loved die with her people." He opened his eyes and met Leah's gaze. "I'm afraid, Leah. I'm afraid, actually, but I think I'll do this." Leah's eyes widened. "Are you sure that once this is done, there is no going back?" The starlight scared and excited Zani. He stands on the edge of an unprecedented situation that will forever change not only his life, but also the course of both species. "When did we start?" he asked, his voice stable. Although he was turbulent inside, Leah's eyes seemed to shine. "Now, if you are ready, our scientists have everything ready." He said goodbye to his old life and to everything he knew in the world. No matter what was ahead, there was no turn now. Lee's people and Zane's own fate hung in balance when they entered Zane, so that his shoulders were ready to confront everything that came further. The door closed behind them. When Zane and Leah arrive at the facility, the greatest adventure of his life and the deepest sacrifice of his life are about to begin, confirming Zane's resolve. Tension is in the air as alien scientists rush to make final preparations for this unprecedented operation. Zane's heart pounded against his resolve, shaken by the reality of what he was about to do, when Leah squeezed his hand, her touch sending a familiar spark through his body. "Are you still convinced about this, Zane?" She searched his face with clear eyes. Zane nodded and swallowed hard. "But Leah, I need to know how long we've been together. Without this fusion, genetic degradation accelerated and my people would be extinct within a month." The weight of this knowledge fell on Zahn's shoulders like a physical burden. He straightened up secretly. "So, let's not waste any more time. What do I need to do to get the older alien to slowly but purposefully approach his movements?" "I am Dr. Corvus, chief scientist at Tarnia. We cannot thank you enough for your sacrifice. Follow me." Sharp-eyed, Sauron led them to a room with two pod-like structures connected through a pulsing web of energy. The device exhausted his scientific mind, and he was eager to understand how it worked. "These pods will promote symbiotic fusion. This," Thorin explains, "will allow for the gradual integration of your genetic material and consciousness." "What are the risks?" Thorin's expression turned serious. "The process is irreversible. There is a small chance that a failed merger will result in a good outcome. We cannot determine the outcome of this situation. Zane, if you change your mind, Zane won't bother you. Although I don't have that, let's do this while the researchers are making the final adjustments." Before we begin, Zahn turns to Leah. "I need you to promise me one thing." Leah nods and will never leave anything of his if possible. "If we become something new, I promise, we will use our knowledge to bridge our worlds and promote understanding between humanity and your people." Leah's eyes sparkled with emotion. "Our new existence will be dedicated to unity and progress toward a final shared look." They stepped into their respective pods as the transparent cover sealed, and Zane felt a momentary panic. He closed his eyes and focused on breathing. This Thorin voice comes from the speaker for our process. Now Dr. Covey's Leah is ready for excitement. The air was getting stronger, and Zane felt a tingling sensation spread throughout his body, starting at his extremities and spreading inward. He gasped, the feeling growing stronger and almost painful. Then suddenly, he felt the presence of a Leah Zay that was not his own in his mind, her voice echoing in his mind, "I feel you." Their consciousness begins to intertwine with the memories and emotions that flow between them. Like water, Zane saw the spark in Leah's life. Her world has reached its peak, her people have fallen into despair, and the hope she felt when she met him is beginning to fade. The sensation in his body grew more and more intense, and Zane could feel his atoms being torn apart and put back together. He wanted to scream, but just when he thought he couldn't take it anymore, he found himself out of control of his body. Something changed. The pain subsided, replaced by a sense of expansion, and Zane felt as if his consciousness was expanding not only around his and Leah's bodies, but also into the colorful fabric of the universe. Sights like he had never seen before flooded into his vision. He can feel the underground rotation of the planets, which killed the LIA people's cosmic radiation, and more importantly, he understood it all at the basic level, and the final energy increased the plant. The merger is over. The hatch opened, releasing a steaming cloud of thoron, and the other scientists rushed forward, instruments at the ready and vital signs steady. A summoned genetic integration seemed to emerge from the fog, a figure that wasn't quite admiration, not quite Leah, but something entirely new. The creature's skin glows with blue irises, and its eyes glow with an inner light when it speaks. It sounds like a harmonious blend of Zay's and Leah's voices, and we are one. It says to look in wonder at our new form, and yet we are more than the sum of our parts. Thoron approached cautiously. How do you feel? Are you both still there, with the smile and expression of infinite understanding? We are Zane and Leah, and we are something new. We remember our past selves, but we move on as the initial shock wears off and who Zane once was, and Leah begins to explain what they now understand. They talked about the genetic fixes needed to save humanity and about new technologies that could revolutionize both societies and deepen our understanding of the universe itself. Over the next few weeks, the changes induced by the gene therapy will be synthesized and distributed. Stop the destruction of Leia's race. News about the incredible Dr. The revelation of the sacrifice and transformation of Xanancovies spread across the planet. They were named Zalia, an amalgamation of their former selves, and their tireless efforts on Earth to bridge the gap between the two species ushered in an unprecedented era of cooperation and progress. A year after the merger, Zelia stood on the observation deck of the new United Extraterrestrial Space Station, watching people's faces as they interacted with her former colleagues. Isn't that what it's all about? All this in just 1 year, Zalia nodded, their glowing skin shining in the starlight. This is just the beginning. Asha still has a lot to explore and discover. Do you ever regret it? Asha asked hesitantly, abandoning her human life. Zalia was silent for a while, and their glowing eyes scanned at the stars. We remember the fear of Zane, but no, we do not regret the benefits we gain or the goal we can achieve. We go beyond everything Zane or Leah can imagine. They imagine a smile on their lips. We are a bridge between worlds. The key to finding the secrets of the universe is that our journey has just begun. Just as they were talking, a new ship appeared on the horizon, the first human-alien joint deep space exploration ship. Its mission is to go beyond the excitement of finding new life and new civilizations known in space. They are no longer just Xancovies. This ambitious astrophysicist, or Leah, is the last hope of a dying race. There are several new symbols of unity, premonitions of a future where the lines between species are blurred and the universe itself becomes within reach. When the ship docked, the crew went ashore. A mix of humans and Leahs, Zalia knew their sacrifices had been worth it. They had not only saved the species but also opened the door to a new era of cosmic exploration and understanding. An adventure that begins with a simple scan of the edge of known space changes the future of not only Zaya and Leia, but the entire species. When Zaria looks up at the stars, They know that the greatest revelation of all changes is yet to come, that the universe is full of mystery and hope, that Zaria was once Zane and Leah, and now the bridge between worlds is ready to answer it. Call.